and welcome to the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and their content-creating guests go back through the past and into the future of the 80s movies we think we love or might have missed with these, our modern eyes, to see how they held up. And this is a big one. Today we're doing Back to the Future, the movie selection from 1985.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley. Well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's got to be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping Tom.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
He's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear? Precisely.
Michael J. Fox,
Whoa, this is heavy.
Christopher Lloyd,
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Back to the Future.
Why is that the bit they went with?
I love the old trailers where they haven't completely dialed in on what's great about the movie. You know, it's like The Princess Bride was the best or the worst in terms of that.
The best of the worst of trailers of the 80s?
Where they just didn't get what was great about the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. There are so many fun things that are not really vibing in that trailer. All right. Hi, I'm Krissy Lenz. I am the comedian on this podcast, and with me, as always, is Nathan Blackwell, the filmmaker.
Hey, everyone.
And today we have a very exciting guest. We have Chuy Plays here with us.
Hello.
Chuy's also a performer at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater. And tell us a little bit about all of the things that Chuy plays.
Chewy plays so many things. I play a lot of Animal Crossing mostly, but I am a YouTube content creator as well as a podcaster, and I have just started writing for an indie magazine about indie video games, but I also just watch a lot of movies and have a lot of fun doing that sort of thing. So yeah, lots of different things.
Awesome. And I love Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
as
me
well.
too.
Nathan is not a crosser of animals.
I don't have the Nintendo system.
Jeez.
I like animals. They're fine. They look cute. I want to hug them.
Well, before we jump in and talk about Back to the Future, I did want to talk a little bit about you are currently making a filmmaker, Nathan.
So I'm in production right now on a low budget feature film. We shot in November for 8 days, and then coming up in January we're shooting for 9 more. So yeah, it's pretty exciting / stressful / scary.
Yeah, but it's going to be something that, of course, Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast listeners are going to be really excited about, because of course it's the filmmaking of Nathan Blackwell plus our favorite guests starring Adam Reaney and Craig Curtis, and it's really, really cool. So
yep, they're all I could afford.
And it's really great. So I'm super looking forward to being able to talk about all the current filmmaker-y things that are happening while we're talking about films. So Back to the Future.
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
We had to cross certain milestones, ones that we've been saving.
Right. Episode 70 is where we really find our voice.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, we had to. Okay, it was time. Let's do Back to the Future.
Yeah, and so like if Gremlins is our Christmas episode, then Back to the Future is our New Year's episode.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, Chuy, for you, like, is this like a big movie for you, or how do you feel about it?
This is my favorite part where people are like, "Oh, you're young."
You are young.
This is definitely one that came out before I was born, only 6 years before I was born.
Okay.
But I'm like sixth of 7 children, so I basically grew up in the 80s in my household. So everything I watched was just everything they watched. They had the control. So I always got treated to nice 80s movies. And so this one was definitely... I recently watched the new Ghostbusters, and I was just reminded of all the times as a kid where I took the vacuum and put it on my back and was like, I'm a Ghostbuster now.
Yeah.
And so this movie, going back to it, I was like, yeah, I did want a DeLorean like everybody else did. And yeah, it was a good reminder of all the fun things from my childhood.
Okay, good. So you
Yeah.
got to experience it
Acceptable.
in the way
That was the correct answer.
Yeah, the way it's intended, which is out of time.
Yeah.
You were seeing it fourth dimensionally
In the future, yes.
In the future. And what about for you, Nathan?
Yeah, for me, this is one of those like lightning bolt movies to where it's like, oh my god, movies are great.
Movies are great. We should make
Oh my
some.
god. So yeah, this was one of those ones where, like, at this point we didn't have a VHS player, so I was only able to catch it at friends' homes or when it was on TV and things like that, and so yeah, it was a big deal because there really wasn't any. There's tons of them now, but there really wasn't an awesome time travel movie for us. Other than like a black and white H.G. Wells,
Yeah.
like a stuffy old man, like a Doctor Who kind of, there wasn't like the new kind of like Spielberg visual effects and the big music and the kind of like time travel thing for us as a kids then that just like blew up our imagination.
Right.
And I mean, this is one of those movies to where it's just, you talk about like, so what makes it endure, what makes it great, and it's just revisiting it, like it's just great storytelling. Like every scene has something fun either in the way it's told or what it's about, and it's just kind of like, Bob Gale, Robert Zemeckis just firing on all cylinders and just going for it.
Yeah. I completely agree that every scene has so many layers of things to come back to. And that's something that I hope that we'll talk about as we go through talking about the movie. This big one for me also, I am wearing part of my Marty McFly cosplay. I have a flux capacitor tattoo that says thinking fourth dimensionally. And so, yeah, this was definitely one of those movies where, like, when you're a kid who's a girl in the 80s, like, all of the movie characters that you want to be are boys. So I definitely wanted to be a Marty McFly. And time travel, yeah.
Oh,
Huge.
yeah. Time
Huge.
travel, this, like, so I am way into, like, time travel, and this
But,
is...
like,
this
in
is
a smart way? Because I'm into it in a dumb way.
I would say I'm into it a smart and dumb way.
Okay,
Like,
perfect.
Both ways.
There's not enough for me to consume in terms of, like, time travel stuff, so I go for the smart and the dumb.
Okay. And are you a time travel guy?
I
Chewy?
love time travel.
I know, right?
Yeah.
What is it about time travel that is exciting? Is it the idea of, like... Sometimes I think is it about history? Is it about going into the past? Is it about, like, changing something in your life? And I don't feel like it necessarily is. In some ways, it's kind of just the fun of a puzzle.
Yeah.
The fun of the cause and effect and the dominoes and how things affect each other and just like, okay, and also like time travel movies are puzzles in themselves of like, how are they going to get back? How are they going to solve this problem over there?
Well, and that's part of the thinking fourth dimensionally thing, right? So like whenever Doc is explaining, look, you did this now, which means that 10 years from now, all these little tiny, like, it's the Rube Goldberg, right?
Yeah.
So we see that whole opening Rube Goldberg dog food machine, and it's this thing here has this cascading effect that goes into the future in positive ways and negative ways. And, you know, like, obviously one of my other favorite movies is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, time travel. But it's a different kind of time travel in these two movies.
Right.
And this one's a little bit smarter because we don't get into that, like, okay, well, there's a little bit of it. Like, I'll go back 10 minutes early so that I can tell Doc. And I have thoughts about, like, that's the very end of the movie, so I want to put a pin in that. But, like, and then, you know, talk about, like, Endgame, when they are explaining how time travel works, and it's really like a stream that you have to, like, jump into the stream of the timeline and stuff. Or, like, the Loki. Did you watch the Loki?
Yeah, watched Loki.
Where it's, like, there are variants and there are branches. Like, it gets real confusing real fast.
Yeah, it's any time travel movie has to deal with lots of exposition of this is how things work. This is how things don't work. These are the consequences if this happens.
Right.
And every time travel movie either has to thread that needle or chokes on it at some point. You know, it's no matter what movie, any time travel movie has to deal with. Okay, how does this version of time travel work?
Right.
You know, like in Looper, they kind of like both fun and just kind of a lot of it is what we see, but also the narration. But there's also a moment where you know, like Bruce Willis is like, stop thinking about that stuff. It's just like this, you know.
Yeah. Well, they do that in Endgame too, where they're like, look, forget Bill and Ted's, forget Back to the Future. It's like, what is the one that they say? It's like this.
I don't remember, but it's basically like branching off timelines, right? With that one, instead of
where
like
it's like
sticky
you have
time.
to join the time stream, and you can't necessarily. If you cause a variant, then that becomes its whole other stream.
Yeah, that's its other thing. It's like
well,
the
it's explained
multiverse,
twice.
basically.
Once it's like it's not like Back to the Future. You can't go back and change your past because you already exist in whatever time that happened, so you can't do that.
You can't do
that.
that.
And then there's the second time where then the great one, the master.
The ancient one?
Doctor Strange. I've seen that movie like 13 times.
They're all the blank one.
So she explains, if you remove one of these, then this happens, and then you have to do this to redo. So it's kind of explained twice.
Yeah. I think they do a really good job of explaining it in Loki. And I really like the way that Doc Brown explains it in this, which is the flux capacitor makes time travel possible. That's one. 2, 1.21 gigawatts. 3, fourth dimensional thinking. That's all there is. Right? That's it. And I love their fun, like, because the reason it doesn't matter how they explain it is because Doc is obviously like an unreliable genius, and Marty's just like, yeah, Doc, I don't care how the science works. Just help me not disappear.
Yeah, this is so. In terms of types of time travels, this is a consequence style timeline. If you do this, then it will affect your future.
Right.
It's not a paradox where where the future has already affected your now.
Right.
Like you can't. It's like those ones where you realize you're just repeating a loop.
Right. Which I don't think it makes as much sense in this. You cross a branch, and in this, like, there's only one timeline. I don't think that makes
simplifies
as much sense.
it for sure.
But
where you don't have to worry about all of those things branching off and turning into something new. It's just
there's
like
variants.
This is it. This is the one timeline you've got.
There's one Marty.
Yeah.
And it's you. Except later there's 2 Martys, and they're both you.
Yeah.
But you're this Marty now, and that Marty then doesn't remember the Marty that's now, because the Marty that's now didn't know the Marty that was then.
Yeah, he didn't see him.
He didn't see it.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing he didn't.
Yeah. Because then he'd have to watch the second movie.
But I think it makes more sense that, like, the Biff Tannen timeline is happening at the same time as all of these other timelines. But not in this movie. In this movie, we open on sort of setting the scene, setting the stage of like we're just panning across all of the
great
clocks.
opening sequence.
A great opening sequence.
Yeah. And most of the subtleties, it's funny because like, this movie was baked into my brain for the longest time. You know, this is not a movie this is a movie that I saw like 100 times as a kid and then only revisited like every 4 years or so, you know.
Oh goodness, you have to watch this once a year.
Right.
You have to watch all 3 of them once a year.
But it's funny that there were things that, because it had been programmed in my brain as a kid, like this is what the movie was about, there was a ton of stuff that I just completely missed and forgot about or didn't pick up on until I was an adult. Like these subtleties of things like just, I mean, you know, not this viewing, but I'm saying like, you know, like in my 30s, these are things I picked up of just like the opening sequence about, oh yeah, you know, for some reason it never really functioned. It never really kind of, you know, made an impact on me that Doc Brown's place at the beginning is a small dump that is next to Burger King.
Yeah.
And then he lives in the, you know, the family mansion later. In my brain, I never thought that his place was a dump. I just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never thought, oh, fall from grace difference there.
I think you have to be an adult to get that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I didn't pick
It
up
means
on
nothing.
all the graffiti that's in the beginning and all the trash that's in 1985. Like, every opportunity, there's graffiti on the walls.
Yep. Hill Valley is
It's a dump.
It's
trash.
been run down. It's been around.
But also as an adult, I noticed
The adult theater
There's-
that's
as you're
in the
panning
town
across-
square.
the clocks. There is a little clock tower with Doc hanging off of it, a little paper Doc hanging
Really?
off a clock. Yeah, as they're panning across, there's like a tall sort of cuckoo clock looking thing, and there's a little like drawing of a man in a little hat hanging
Oh,
off the
no
clock.
way.
So look for that next time you go back.
Wow.
But like I always remember that part where he's like Marty hooks up to this big old amplifier
Yeah,
and
that's
like
the big thing.
and then talks to Doc on the phone, and I do wonder, like, Doc's like, my experiment works. All the clocks are 25 minutes late. And then Marty's like, that means I'm late for school. And it's like, what experiment was this, Doc? What experiment was this? You set the clocks late, and now they're late? Top-notch science, Doc Brown. Well done, Emmett A. Brown. But so the question always is, like, what is the story of Doc and Marty? How did Doc and Marty meet? They never tell us this tale. We never get the origin of how Doc and Marty are friends. And is it weird that this teenage kid has this, like, you know, very close bond with this disgraced nuclear science weirdo?
Yeah, what's the in? You know, is it?
I say it doesn't matter. I'm just going to
Yeah.
assume he's a Miyagi. And that this is all, you know, to be cherished. And, like, he's, you know, a grandpa figure.
We should all go out and befriend a high schooler.
Yeah. Sure.
It sounds weirder when you say it like
yeah,
that.
it does. I think you first have to, like, fall from grace as a filmmaker and then, you know, discover time-making filmography.
You got to spend
Well, I
the
guess
family fortune. There's a small line there where
I've
he
already
says, "I've
spent it."
used the family fortune." Yeah.
Well, but, like, Karate Kid is friends with an older guy, and, like, we get the origin story of them, but it's just like, oh, I needed a guy, and this was the guy. Maybe Marty needed help on a science project and met Doc Brown that way, and they were just, like, found kindred spirits.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
I mean, I like that they don't explain it because everybody's just like, yeah, they're friends and we're not going to question it. It's just like the unlikely pairing that's just fun to watch. And yeah, so sometimes that's all you really need. You just need a couple characters that you care about and then watch their hijinks
Yeah.
as they explore it. Yeah.
Also, in 1985, nobody cared what teenagers were up to or what adults they may or may not be hanging out with. Honestly, the only person who showed any interest in what Marty was doing with his time or his life was Principal Strickland.
Right.
And he had mostly negative things to say. So Marty's late to school. I absolutely love the very dangerous way in which he skateboard hitchhikes on the back of cars.
Bad precedent for kids.
Yes, I always wanted to do that.
I always wanted to die doing that.
I mean, it looked really fun, and he doesn't have to do any of the, like, footwork himself. But he's late to school. We meet his girlfriend, Jennifer. We meet Principal Strickland. We learn that no McFly has ever amounted to anything in the entire history of Hill Valley. Marty wants to be in a band. His band is too darn loud.
The Pinheads.
The Pinheads.
I've been there. I auditioned. Well, I've auditioned for like just a talent show in high school, and they just said no. We played the loudest, jazziest thing we could find, and then they looked at us and they're like, "This isn't right for this."
That's great.
I do think that like all time travel movies should have some element of a battle of the bands.
Always.
I think it enhances it.
Yeah.
Makes it better.
Battle of the Bands is basically my favorite movie genre, so I'm for it.
Excellent. Anytime we get out of Battle of the Bands or any kind of time travel, I'm for it. We sort of like learn that Marty's whole like point of view on life is he's just like hapless. He has no sense of time, no sense of direction. He knows that he wants big things, but he's so afraid to try and fail that it seems like he probably won't end up trying that hard. But you're right. Hill Valley in the 80s is trash. The movie theater is a porn theater. There's like
adult bookstore.
Everything's gross, graffiti, trash blowing around in the street.
And none of that changed with time travel. Hey,
Yeah.
there's only so much one guy can do. Like
It's true. So we learned about the clock tower, save the clock tower. Very lucky that scene happened and that very pushy woman was like, lightning hit the clock tower at exactly this time and I care about it. So off we go. We meet Biff. We meet the McFly family. They're terrible. Nothing's going Marty's way.
No.
But Doc needs him to meet him at the mall at 1 o'clock in the morning to help him with some science. Seems perfectly legit.
Needs some help in his van.
Yeah. So he skates on over there, and lo and behold, here's Doc Brown, and things are about to happen. He stole some plutonium from some Libyans. He made a time machine out of a DeLorean. He's about to do some unauthorized animal experimentation. And here we go.
And cinema history.
Yeah,
For whatever reason, this sequence was the one that I saw the most.
Yes, because it's the best part of the whole thing. This and when he's racing to hit the clock tower at the end are the
tension.
best parts. It's so tense.
Yeah, they just keep throwing problems in there where you're like, great, are they ever going to connect this and make it work?
They are heightening,
Yeah.
heightening.
Nothing but that.
It's the story of like, okay, so we've got a plan. All we need to do is hit it right at the you just drive right by at the right time that the lightning bolt hits. And story wise, plot wise, it's very little. It's like, okay, so I introduced my parents, they got together, and now I just need to go and do this.
Yeah.
And so the only way to then make that dramatic and to fill like that 15-20 minutes is just to throw as many monkey wrenches at them as possible. Because basically it's very, very simple what they need to do.
Very, very simple, but he needs to drive a DeLorean and hit with a hook on it to hit a wire at the exact moment lightning strikes the tower. It doesn't seem that simple.
But yeah, it's just a great example of them, the filmmakers just making a total meal out of it. Because again, like it's very simple, but then you have to dramatize it.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the like exposition dumps or the explanations dumps that we get in this scene with Doc and Marty?
Yeah, all of them were so fun. Like it's like one example is him showing again. It's that threading the needle of like, what do we need to know? How do we explain time travel? But yet, more importantly, how do we make it fun? Like they would always take the information, but then they would they would kind of wrap it in a burrito of fun. So like the example of
and a Christopher Lloyd
yeah,
branded burrito.
you're actually thinking about the delivery more than the information. And so like the example I think of is he's made a total scale model of the it's not to scale. A model of the square and showing them how it's going to do it and how it's going to work, and then there's so much drama. It's like, all right, ready, set, release, and then the car sets on fire, and then the fire spreads, and
and he like Doc Brown, like Christopher Lloyd and his Doc Brown gasps are just that's the whole is so people who were considered to play Doc Brown other than Christopher Lloyd include Jeff Goldblum, John Lithgow, Dudley Moore, Robin Williams, John Cleese, Mandy Patinkin, Gene Hackman, and James Woods. I mean, a couple of those I could see.
Yeah.
Like, it could be, but it's a whole different movie. Like, you put Jeff Goldblum in there, and all of a sudden, oh my God, what?
It's slower,
Yeah.
I think.
Well,
a lot
Jeff-
slower.
November 5th, 1955. Like,
yeah. Well, a lot of those also weren't particularly too old,
right.
Yeah.
They would have aged them a bit on purpose, but I don't know how old Christopher Lloyd was.
I mean, I think he's eternally 70. I think he was born 70 and he'll die 70. So what do you think of, like, do you know Christopher Lloyd from other stuff?
Yeah, The Page Master.
Okay.
And, oh shoot, what was the recent one that I saw him in? Nope, that was the
Addams
funny. Yes, Addams Family. No, I was just thinking of the trailer for Rick and Morty, like some live action thing where, they just had him in that.
Oh, yeah.
Shoot.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Oh, God, yeah.
That's
He's
a great
so
one.
scary in that.
Yeah, I just thought of The Page Master, and I was like, nope, that's the only one I care about right
The
now.
only one. He's just so good, though. He's just so good and perfect.
He has
Dennis the Menace. That's the other one I was thinking. He's...
Huh.
I've never seen that.
Oh, really? He's like a real crook character.
Oh,
Almost
nice.
doesn't look like him for a second, and then you're like, wait, it is him.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it could be fun with any of those people, but just like it isn't what it is without Michael J. Fox. It's the two of them together.
Yeah, and we know that for sure.
We know that 100% because, and do you know this, Chewy, that they shot most of the movie with Eric Stoltz?
No, I didn't know
as the lead
this.
character, as Marty McFly, because at the time when they were shooting this in 1985, Family Ties was like hugely popular. Are you familiar with the Family Ties? Of course you're not. It was a show on the TV when we could only have 3 shows at a time. Family Ties is one of them. And it was the hilarious story of like a hippie family. Like the parents were hippies and Michael J. Fox was like a Reagan Republican child living in this hippie family. Have I summarized it correctly?
More or less, at least his part in it.
His part?
That's all I remember.
That's all anyone remembers.
Admittedly, it's been a while.
Yeah. So it was this hugely popular TV show, and he was shooting that. So they wanted him, they couldn't get him, so they cast an actor named Eric Stoltz, who was a method acting drama guy, and he
Yeah, the studio head really wanted Eric Stoltz.
And that guy, the studio head, tried to screw up this movie every way possible, and thankfully did not succeed. But they actually cast him. They shot a lot of the movie with him. He's a method actor, so he made everyone call him Marty, and like wouldn't answer to his own name.
They're fun.
Right?
They're just a lot of fun to be around.
So they were just like, it's not working. But they also didn't tell him that. They started shooting scenes around him, and then they were like, oh, we're doing that because you've been replaced. And so
No, they did tell
got rid
him.
of
They did tell him.
Eventually, but they shot a lot of scenes where he didn't know why they weren't shooting his.
It's because
Coverage.
when they told him, they used his real name.
They
They didn't
did.
call him Marty.
he couldn't
yeah.
understand,
For 3 days, they were trying to tell him, but he,
and he just
couldn't
was
get it.
like,
He didn't get it.
Marty
Yeah.
doesn't know who this Eric person is. And then, so Michael J. Fox was shooting Family Ties during the day, and then would come and shoot Back to the Future, and like, it was,
That explains a lot of night shots.
yeah. And they would like, they described like people, like the crew members having to carry him to bed like a tiny, tiny child. So cute. So yes, there's that piece of information. Other people who were considered to play Marty McFly, obviously Eric Stoltz, but we also had in consideration John Cusack, C. Thomas Howell, Johnny Depp, Ralph Macchio, Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, Ben Stiller.
Huh.
That name surprises me. Robert Downey Jr. And Matthew Modine. I think Robert Downey Jr. could have done a cute job, but he would have been too much of a scamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox is exactly the right amount of scamp.
It's a really good amount.
Yeah, on the dial.
And like Ralph Macchio and C. Thomas Howell, not enough scamp.
Yeah.
So here's the scene. We learn all about the time travel. They found me. I don't know how, but they found me. It's the Libyans. And they're in a Volkswagen and they're driving around. Marty sees Doc gunned down before his very eyes. And what is he going to do?
Traumatizing.
He's going to hop in that DeLorean and
Make a
just
getaway.
drive around the mall, completely forgetting that this is a time machine. We just learned this is a time machine. And if you go 88 miles an hour, that's when time travel is instigated. And there is a really smart piece, which I like. My brain totally skipped over all the times I watched it as a kid, where Doc's like, "Oh, I'm a fool. I almost forgot to get the extra plutonium so I could come back." Right as as stuff's about to go down, which is something we have to talk about when we circle back to this part at the end. Or should we just do it now?
Yeah, let's do it now.
Okay.
I mean, we're only 20 minutes into the movie at this point.
And we're 35 minutes into the podcast. So Doc then, we learn at the end that Doc did read the letter that Marty tried to give him to let him know, like, you're going to be killed on the night I come back. You're going to be killed and you're my friend and I would like to hang out more, so please don't be killed. Doc's like, no, I won't read it. I can't know about the future. So, of course, Marty's like, well, I'll go back 10 minutes earlier and I'll just tell you with my face, and then you won't be able to, we'll run or whatever, I don't know. But so then we go back, we see that whole dramatic scene again. Doc allows his friend Marty, a child, to see him murdered twice to do a gag, I guess, that he's wearing a bulletproof vest.
Well,
he did read the letter.
right.
Yeah.
Doc Brown, the way he's thinking is that he can't change anything except up until that point.
So he can't change Marty's reaction?
No.
Because he could have stopped the whole thing.
No, he can't do that at all, because then it wouldn't, the whole loop wouldn't happen. So he can't change any of that.
He can't like toss a plutonium in there, be like, oh, I almost forgot,
No,
Marty.
because
I didn't.
Because then that would change everything.
I think this just like builds on their friendship though, because he wanted time with Marty.
Because remember,
So-
Doc Brown at this point had seen Marty successfully reunite his parents and then return.
But had he though? So then the Doc Brown that we leave at the beginning, who gets shot and killed by the Libyans in that first time stream.
So that one has if the parents are the crappy parents at the beginning, that means that Doc Brown has not read the letter.
Experienced any of this, right?
Correct. And then now, having gone through the whole experience, he knows that to have everything complete, that he can only change stuff that no one knows about. So the only thing he can change, he has to let everything transpire exactly how it is, except now the change out is that he will be prepared with a bulletproof vest.
Because Marty didn't know
Correct.
that
He
part
has
before.
he has to let it all play out. Otherwise, he won't go back into the past.
I don't know.
I think this
Fact.
this kind of feels like it explains their friendship too, and I feel like Doc initiated this friendship.
Well, it's different the
because
next
he's
time
coming
around,
from
yeah.
he's coming from this new timeline or whatever their new outcome is, and he knows Marty already. He knows this Marty who hasn't been born, and now this Marty is born, and he's like, oh, it's my friend. We can finally hang out and do our friendship stuff together, right?
Then that reminds me of like there is like a really nice moment in the end of Back to the Future Part 2 and the beginning of Back to the Future Part 3 where he's like, I have to wait for you to come and find me, so I'm experiencing time without you, and I miss you.
Yeah, their relationship goes through so many different stages. You know, they've at the beginning, he's kind of an assistant.
Yeah.
You know, and then imagine
An intern, if you will.
An intern, if you will.
Unpaid intern.
And then imagine, if you will, that Doc has now experienced 30 years of knowing that Marty's going to show up. And then, maybe they've only known each other for one. So when he finally meets them, their relationship is probably different. Like, he has to know to himself, yes, to treat him the same way. But he is, Doc is experiencing a deeper level of connection and friendship with Marty.
So
when
that
he pulls open the bulletproof vest, he can finally be himself now because he's experienced their entire relationship.
Okay, so now I'm thinking about Jumanji. And in Jumanji, the new one, the Jack Black one.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen all the Jumanjis.
Okay, good. when they get back from Jumanji, and then Colin Hanks is like, I've been waiting for you guys for 30 years. You're saying that's what it was? Is that Doc was like, now here's the moment. Today's the day.
Yeah.
But then their next adventure happens that same day.
Well, yes. It happens the same day for Marty.
For Marty.
Yeah.
But not for Doc.
Yeah, Doc has gone to the future and now experienced a whole series of things, and now he's like, oh, now my friend is in trouble. I've got to help my friend.
We got to do this thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another time travel related question.
Okay, sorry.
So as we
This is a two-parter, isn't it?
Oh my God. So
Two-parter
as we
podcast.
go, Marty finds his parents. He meets his parents. So the whole instigation of this movie was that Bob Gale, who wrote the movie with Robert Zemeckis, was like, what if you could know your parents in high school? Would you like them? Would you be friends with them? What would they really be like? So that's kind of the story within the story of time travel. He meets his parents. They're, his mom's real horny, and his dad's real weird.
Very Crispin Glover.
Different
Very
horny.
Crispin Glover. Horny in a different way.
Yeah.
A less honest and open way, possibly. And he just instinctively interferes in such a way to like prevent his parents from meeting, A, and B, his mom falls in love with him instead of the dad. So as we learn this, a photograph of Marty and his two older siblings begins to fade and disappear, starting with the older brother. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't Marty disappear first?
It is completely just the answer is it's completely a, quote, fun device.
Okay.
There's no
reason why time wouldn't erase itself backwards.
You cannot logic explain that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thoughts, Chewy?
It's just, I mean...
Usually I'd try, but I feel like I
that's weird.
can't.
His head is just disappearing. Oh, now it's just his torso. It's like, oh, yes, here's our oldest. He has no head. But we took the picture of him.
He's working at the McDonald's and, like, his head is gone.
Right, exactly.
Like, what is happening there?
I think the only way I guess I'm trying to imagine the way they thought it out, and they're like, well, time is moving that way, and the first child they're going to have is the oldest, so they're going to disappear first.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the only way I could think of.
Yeah,
them
in terms of the
thinking
order, but in terms of the picture, I guarantee you everyone said to Bob Zemeckis, there's no way that this makes sense. He goes, like, trust me,
no
if
one
they're
cares.
no one's going to care. They're going to be into the movie at this point. No one's going to care.
Okay. That's fair. I did not care, and I don't care, but it did occur to me, like, why wouldn't Marty be the person in initial peril? So
if he had disappeared first, it would have been a pretty interesting movie.
So there's kind of like there's all these other stories. So there's
we also had one of the most amusing, like revisiting it, one of the most amusing lines in the movie where the dad hit Marty McFly with the car, and he said, "Another one of these damn kids got in front of my car."
I love Lorraine's family, and although I think like the jailbird Joey, like what was that? That was for one joke.
That's some pretty strong commentary there.
Yeah.
Just to show the connection.
Just to show the connection.
But the big thing about this movie was it introduced the 50s to a lot of people that didn't experience it. And I remember that there was a huge, like...
Nostalgia.
I mean, just like not long ago, like 80s nostalgia has been big.
I still experience it every day.
Yeah, me too. But I remember like 50s diners popping up and becoming a big deal.
Sock hop.
And me as a kid, it's like, oh, this is so cool because it's just now far enough removed that it feels like a different age.
Yeah.
Like the 90s, like I don't know, I kind of know what the 90s are. Like we'll know.
Well, but it's this whole other thing, right? So 30 years ago from now was 1991, and it wouldn't be so. Like I'm trying to picture like my 15-year-old if she had to go back into 1991 and like interact with me in some way, the world wouldn't be as different as it was from 1985 to 1955, right? From 1955 to 1985, huge things.
Huge cultural,
changed.
technological changes.
Yeah, and from
Civil
1991,
rights.
There's still some pretty big changes in those 30 years, though. I'd say post 9/11's a pretty big change, but then you also have like people really getting into like technology.
Oh,
in
the
general.
internet.
Yeah, the internet
We still
changes
had-
everything.
So I still had like cell phones and beepers like in the world, so I wouldn't be like, "Whoa, you're a witch! What's that? What's
That's
that
true.
tiny computer in your hand?"
Well, like in,
Yeah,
the,
it's
in
like something you
91,
could imagine.
yeah, like 91, having a cell phone was still super rare. Like it was pagers and things like that. I remember finally retiring my pager like in 96, 97 or something like that.
So yeah, I think it was just like kind of auspicious that there is this big difference between the 50s and the 80s, and I think there's some things to be said for like the 50s. That's when America was great. That's when things were like so clean and pristine and everything was going great.
I feel like a lot of people can take that away, but there's also a lot of stuff that comes off as not that way. It's like the one man of color getting ordered around. That'll be the day a colored mayor, like right to his face.
Well, and one of the things that like I've found problematic about the movie now in 2021 is that there is this sort of double joke of Marty being the person who like instigates black success. So he's like, yeah, you're going to be the mayor.
They Forrest
and then he's
Gumped
like,
it.
yeah, exactly. And then like, Marvin Berry, listen to, your cousin, listen to this. He's playing Johnny Be Good. And it's like, oh, okay. So you're telling me a white teenager actually invented? Like, no. So those two things I think are the most probably problematic.
Correct.
Well, there's one
Yeah,
more
I
big
agree.
one.
Yeah, although, I guess in defense of that, he did become mayor without Marty's help in the past, like in the original 80s
exactly.
version. And then Chuck Berry did do that song because he played it in the past.
Right. So he wouldn't know it if there hadn't been.
Correct.
It just seems like an unnecessary, really
Change in
80s
history. Yeah.
point of view. So like part of this movie is about like what were your parents like. Part of it is like what is your personal responsibility to take control of your destiny, to take risks, to take big swings. I don't know, to kind of go for it, to stand up for what's right.
Well, I think when you talk about people's past, I think a lot of people, have regrets that they wish they would have done this more. Or
would have stood up for themselves more. Would have
like when we do have regrets, it's usually that rather than, oh man, I took all these chances and failed.
So I want to talk about Biff. Biff is the big bully. Biff is a classic textbook cartoon bully, and I think that Thomas F. Wilson is an incredible actor.
Yeah.
Because if you look at not just what he does
He is
in this movie,
the movie bully.
he is. But like if you see like all of the like nuance that he brings to the character in all three of the movies as he's playing like Biff Tannen throughout time and space, like I think his performance is genuinely underrated as a chaotic evil.
Well, yeah, he's associated with the character.
Yeah.
Rather than the actor.
Yeah, like Biff is bully. Like, that's what a bully is.
The bully.
The bully. And he truly is, like, just chaotic evil. Like, he's gonna run Marty over in a car. He's gonna kill him. And, like, you know, of course it's hilarious when he has a face full of manure, but he is a genuinely bad guy. So yeah, so Biff is there just to fuck with the McFlys at every turn. In the past of the future of 1985, he's still bullying Marty McFly. In the future of the past of the new future of 1985, total turnabout, and Biff is now the one waxing the car.
Probably still the full-on dickhead he is, but he just doesn't have the power and confidence.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, then we're meant to believe that, like, George McFly always had this confident, interesting person inside of him, and he just needed the space and the freedom to awaken it, and that Biff always has a terrible monster inside of him, and he needs power in order to be his real self.
Well, I think it's the question of how much do the events in our past affect who we become? You know, it's basically saying cause and effect.
Okay.
You know, it's saying he never stood up for himself, and now that he stood up for himself, his life is different. This, you know, for Biff, no one ever stood up to him, and now that someone has stood up to him, his trajectory was different.
Okay.
So that's
It's the nature-nurture
yeah.
question. Like, we feel like we know what their true natures are, and now they've been nurtured into these characters that we're seeing in the future.
Which maybe contradicts the jailbird Joey thing.
Right.
Maybe he didn't have a Marty McFly in his life.
Well, they're trying to have it kind of every way, you know, that Biff is inherently bad, but he's behaving based on his situation better and worse in certain situations.
Yeah. And ultimately, with a story like this, that's going to be more satisfying, is that cause and effect.
Right. But, like, Marty, just in the first Back to the Future, not in later editions of Back to the Future, but just in the first Back to the Future, he accomplishes all of his goals. He gets back to 1985. It's a better 1985. And, like, did he really do that much to earn this change, better, fancier life? And also, what happened to the other Marty? What happened to the Marty variant that lived in 1985 and would have known all these things about 1985? Did he poof away when this Marty came back?
Well, I guess it depends. Like, so do they cover this a bit in number 2?
In number 2?
Is just, does it split off into another timeline, or does it get replaced?
So there's a 1985 with a Marty that experienced that timeline, and now there's a second that 1985 with a new Marty in it, and they're all variants.
Well, that's the question. It's either replacement or branching.
Okay. What are your thoughts?
I think it's complicated. I think, for me, both of them are kind of strange in the sense of, like, who am I ever?
Right.
Right? And so, I don't know. I think they are just trying to create, basically, the characters they need for whatever they want to happen. And so, some of that gets ignored along the way.
Yeah.
A lot of it. Because you're like, who is this Marty? You're totally right. I never thought of, like, where's the Marty from this timeline? Where did they go? And
Because we know there can be 2 Martys.
yeah.
Up to and including 2 Martys. But yeah, and I mean, I think Marty does most of his growing in the later 2 movies. But another thing that the Back to the Future as a franchise as a whole does beautifully, that I love so much, is that they have these pieces that, like, as a teacher of improv, are perfectly translated into each of the scenarios, right? That scene where he wakes up in the bedroom with Lorraine. Well, you're perfectly safe in good old 1955. You're perfectly safe back in good old Biff Towers. You're perfectly safe back in 1865. Like that, those repeated moments where it's just like translated into these different genres or times, if you will, where it's just like, oh, that is so brilliant. That is such brilliant, beautiful storytelling. and everybody does just such an amazing job. And especially like when Michael J. Fox then plays like all of these crazy different characters and all of the other movies. And I mean, it's just like what they give them to do later is incredible.
Yeah.
But this, just Back to the Future 1 on its own is I think as close as it gets to a perfect time travel movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, what didn't we talk about?
Okay, notes. Let's see.
We didn't talk about like a whole entire middle
Yeah.
of the movie. We didn't talk about Crispin Glover at all.
The music in this movie is fantastic. This is one of those examples to where the movie, in a lot of ways, is pretty simple, and they really use the music to bring it up to the next level in terms of a cinematic experience for the audience. Like when they pan up to things, they put a lot of emphasis on things that maybe in normal situations, if you were cutting together the movie, you wouldn't necessarily do, but they magnify the whole scope of the movie when they do this.
Even a little like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, like
Yeah.
doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, the magic, the sound of the
They
magic.
spent the extra money for a full orchestra for a lot of really important parts of the movie. They didn't have a movie of this budget wouldn't have normally done this, but they knew that they had to lean into this and make it something to elevate the whole movie.
Yeah. And it works, man.
Yeah.
It really works. I wish that my text message sound was doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Something magical's happening. And it's so good.
The Johnny B. Good sequence is really weird. It's really like a victory lap.
It's secondhand
it's like-
embarrassment that I can't.
And I remember being so cool as a kid. Like,
It
but-
always made my teeth hurt.
really.
I'm like, oh my God, Marty, you are embarrassing yourself.
But that's good.
And then there's also like that moment at the dance, that weird second beat where like already, and we've like completely skipped over the whole assault sequence and the Marty and his mom getting frisky in a car. But so George McFly has already stood up to Biff. And then some weirdo on the dance floor, some
Random
ginger
guy.
is
Yeah.
like, I'm going to cut in George McFly. I'm the new Biff in town. And it almost
We
works.
need one more obstacle.
Yeah, yeah. That time it
Oh no, a
didn't-
minibus.
Of
It
all the
didn't
wrenches
feel
they
good.
threw, that one was like, I don't know if you needed that one.
we don't need this ginger weirdo. Like,
Yeah. They needed some big musical moment, is what they were
Yeah.
going for.
Well, I
him
think
to,
what
like-
they needed was that, because that's happening all during that point where Marty's finally disappearing. Like, we finally met that point, and they're like, oh, we never got around to, like,
Marty is
that
not
big...
a participant on
Yeah.
any of that stuff. It's all happening off screen.
but it's all these huge moments of tension, like that. Oh, the tension with, is he gonna punch Biff? Is he gonna punch Biff? All the tension of, is he gonna kiss her? Is he gonna kiss her? Are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? Like, there's so many, there's so much building of tension that, like, when you finally do get to the end, then it's like, oh, you think you're safe now just because Marty's got a new truck? Nope, here comes Doc Brown.
Yeah.
We're going back to the future again. They never let you off the hook.
Nope.
So do we want to talk about how little agency the women of this movie have? Do we want to talk about how creepy it is to have to pretend like you're gonna manhandle your own mom, or how immediately Biff escalates into full-on sexual assault? Or have the world talked about those things enough?
I'm okay. I mean,
I don't know. It's a weird thing that I feel like hovers on this line where it's like, we all know this isn't okay, but we also know this is how people do things.
And then
And
she
it's
doesn't know
awkward.
that
it
it's
is
not
a
okay.
it is
Yeah.
a really weird line to where it's like, we are dramatizing this fun action adventure movie. We're just going to brush up against and show you this thing that you know is a real adult thing. And then we're going to then thread this needle ever so carefully. Oh, it's over. Okay, the scene's
Oh,
over.
thank God. Thank God.
Yeah.
Let's just forget about that until we come back to it in part 2.
Yeah, I also think that it was it's like, okay, well, If we have Marty feel up his mom, we're never going to be into that. And they surprise us and they save us. They have the kiss, and it's the mom who recoils in disgust. It's like, I feel like I'm kissing my brother.
Something's not right here.
Something's not right. And that's perfect because there's no other way to save that situation to where she has her flower has now closed up, shriveled closed, and he is like, oh, thank you.
But she still needed to be in danger, and here comes Biff. Okay, so on a scale of 1 gigawatt to 1.21 gigawatts, which equals 10, which also I read that gigawatts is a correct pronunciation, and that it was and that there's a hard G, soft G, just like GIF, like people used to pronounce it gigawatts. Now they pronounce it gigawatts with the hard G. And so it was a choice. Doc Brown was making a choice to pronounce it how Thomas Edison would have. You both look at me like you're not buying this.
I buy it. He talked to that photo. He said, what did he say?
He talked right to Thomas Edison.
He talked right to Thomas Edison's photo at one point, so I believe
about the gigawatts. He's like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Why would I do that to myself?
I'm into it.
Okay. How many gigawatts on a scale of 1 to 10 would you give this movie? I'll start with Nathan and then I'll do Chewy.
You know what? This is one of those movies. It's like, what are we how do we base the scale of 1 to 10 off of? What's a 10? And I feel like
a 10 is
it's got to be like the upper tier. It's got to be the top tier. You know? This is in terms of like the theme of this podcast. Like, does it hold up? Is it still magical like we thought it was as a kid?
It is.
And yeah, I've got to go with a 10.
Okay, you're giving it a straight up 10.
Straight 10.
So we're putting this on the shelf, on the 10 shelf, with Die Hard, with Princess Bride, and with Raiders.
Lost. Yep.
And wasn't there one more? Did I maybe give Say Anything a 10?
I'm not responsible.
Okay, very well. All right. Was there anything else we gave a 10 to? No?
Not
we
yet.
Did Karate Kid like an 8.5.
Yeah, it got real close.
Okay. All right. Chewy, as a young person, how does this rate for you?
I would say now, I guess it's hard. As one movie on its own, I think it's closer to a 10. Taking them all into account, it may fluctuate a little bit. So I'd say a 9, though. I think there's still some parts that are like questionable. Probably not great for the time period now, but yeah, real close. I'd still say it's like, must watch.
Yeah.
Definitely worth it. Good time. No, there's some awkward moments, but overall, it's just fun.
I think if I was going to take any manner of points away, it would be for that sort of like backdoor racism and the sort of backdoor misogyny that kind of exists because this is a movie made by men in the 80s, in the same way that, we talked a lot about it's the people who are making these movies, like, John Hughes is making all these movies through his own perspective. So like there is a latent casual racism that somebody who was that age at that time would have and would, not knowingly imbue into their art, and I think that is there. Is it not there in Die Hard? I'm not sure. It probably is. It's not there in The Princess Bride.
It's there in Die Hard. It's there in Die Hard, having kind of revisited.
So of the 10s, I think only The Princess Bride is a perfect 10. And maybe this is an imperfect 10.
That's fair.
Okay. So what is your deep cut recommendation for Back to the Future?
So if you really want to, okay, so my deep cut recommendation is actually three things. It's like if you're like me and you're hungry for more time travel movies.
Oh, always.
This is that. But like if you really want to go deeper into Back to the Future, I recommend on the Netflix show The Movies That Made Us.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
So that's a great way to kind of go into the making of the movie. But if you're hungry for more time travel movies, these are ones that are studio releases, but maybe not everyone has caught. And that would be Source Code with Jake Gyllenhaal, About Time, and then Edge of Tomorrow, which is very much like
I love Edge of Tomorrow.
time loop movie. But yeah, those three, if it's possible you've only seen 2 out of 3, those are 3 good time travel movies.
Yeah, and the Edge of Tomorrow is sometimes called Live, Die, Repeat. It
Yeah.
was released under both names.
Yeah, that always confused me.
Well, the Edge of Tomorrow was the original release, and then they're like, no one's remembering it, and they like the trailer, which was Live, Die, Repeat.
I think like when it actually came out, the box art title was Live, Die,
Live, Die,
Repeat.
Yeah.
That movie is so underrated. It's so good.
Yeah.
And a completely different kind of time travel movie.
Yeah, it's basically violent Groundhog Day.
Yeah, violent Groundhog Day for sure. What about you, Chuy?
Mine is very deep. I went less along the time travel route, and I went the unlikely friendship route.
Oh my God, yes.
Because I think that's like the big part here, where we do get zero explanation about Doc and Marty and their friendship. And I went I'll go with the more normal unlikely friendship. Just watching Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart cook together. That's one. That's a visual one. This one's a taste one. Corn and tuna. Apparently, this isn't a common thing that people do, but I grew up eating tuna with corn in like sandwiches. So
In sandwiches.
Like a tuna sandwich, but instead of like celery, it's corn.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my.
I
It's
love
just
that.
try an unlikely paired food.
And maybe if there's a disgraced scientist in your community, reach out.
Give them a second chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe that's probably not safe or sound advice.
Maybe they were right the whole time.
Maybe his crazy ideas on vaccinations were right all along.
So I went even a different way than all of that. Here's my deep cut recommendation. I recommend scooter travel. I think that we should all be trying to be more like Marty and get around our towns in more energy efficient ways. And
Try to interact with fast moving cars if you can.
I've been trying to remember the word for that, like when you hold on to a car. There's a word for it, but I don't remember it.
passive hitchhiking. I don't know. But yeah, maybe don't do that, but do scooter around town and find alternate energy efficient means of transportation. Okay.
So you've got a lot of different choices tonight.
Yeah. And there's no wrong one. Chewy, where can everybody find Chewy playing things?
I am on YouTube, and it's just Chewy Plays on YouTube. I'm on Twitter all the time. Chewy Plays NTDO, like Nintendo, but shortened. And that's the same on Instagram. And then I host a podcast called Haken, an Animal Crossing podcast. And that comes out weekly. It's pretty fun.
And that's under Chewy Plays?
Yes.
On Instagram?
It has its own stuff now, too. Haken Podcast. If you search that anywhere, you'll find it.
Excellent. Nathan, where can people go, and can they still support the making of the last movie
you
ever
can
made?
you can check us out on Facebook and then Instagram. So the movie that I'm working on is tentatively called The Last Movie Ever Made. It very likely may go through a name change because I've discovered that Netflix has trademarked that name. So it may become The Last Movie Ever or The Last Movie or something else. But right now, if you go to The Last Movie Ever Made, or if you just go to Squishy Studios, our Facebook or Instagram, you can find some link to that page and you can support.
Yep. Definitely worth supporting. It's going to be amazing. And of course, you can find me at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater and at all places that are digitally the Neighborhood Comedy Theater, at NCTPHX on all of the interwebs. And of course, at all the most excellent pod things around the interwebs. Look, if you haven't already liked or rated or subscribed or thumbs up or done something to help our podcast, and you're an hour and 10 minutes into this Back to the Future situation, now's the time. I think now's the time. Today's the day.
You know what? We'll wait.
We'll wait?
Yeah.
We'll wait for the timeline where you already have had liked and
we'll
thumbs
wait here.
up
Yeah.
us. Okay. We're going to be doing more live shows, so if you're in the neighborhood of the neighborhood, please come out and see us. And, as always, when you're out there in the world, be excellent to each other and
Party on,
dudes. And that's the end. Yay.
Woohoo.
Yay.